Hi, this is Laurie Leisure from Interior Design Community, and we have our To the Trade podcast. And today we have Robin with us. And tell us a little bit about your business, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robin DelaCruz. I am a New York-based interior designer that does residential, commercial, and vacation rental design. Anywhere anyone would like to have us.
Oh, wow. So all over New York, but all over, really.
Exactly. We've
Yeah,
been to several states already.
that is fantastic. So we met at High Point, which was so fun.
Mm.
Will you be going to High Point again in the fall?
I will be going again. Yes.
That is great. We have a lot of events planned for Interior Design Community at High Point this fall. We're gonna have some great speaking panels, some really great education. We're focusing on we do those great questions for Interior Design Community. So I've tried to figure out the questions that get the most traction and built
Mhm.
speaking panels for those. So we're doing one on how to pick a design coach, which I think a lot of designers are like, who should I pick? How should I pick them? What are the problems that can come
Yeah.
up? That kind of thing. We're gonna do one on negotiation, how to close the sales, how to deal with your clients when you're in a difficult situation, all those negotiation points. And then we're doing one on procurement. So like how to
Oh,
efficiently cut costs during procurement and do really well with that process so that you're not losing money. So we have some really fun things planned. And we're going to be doing a really great cocktail party, meetup at Korean Company. So I'm excited.
okay. Okay. Those are wonderful topics. Is
Yeah.
that the first time you curated so many conversations at High Point?
Yeah. I really think that it's important. There are a lot of amazing topics out there, and I always
Yeah.
impressed by the topics for sure. But we have an inside track to which questions the designers respond to the most because of our Instagram, really. We put those questions out of the day and we can monitor through analytics which questions were the most popular in the last year, in the last 2 years, and then build out a program based on that so that we get really popular questions answered for the designers. Because I think at High Point, that's where you want those hot topics. And we're good with the hot topics.
No, absolutely, absolutely. That's actually one of the things that I fell in love with the community that you were able to build on Instagram, which I think I discovered within the last year. And it was one of the things that when I started as an interior designer, realizing because it was so long ago and times were different, not having that level of camaraderie and community. So to be able to find it on your Instagram and have direct access to other people that are either in different levels of business accolades and the responses, it's been tremendously helpful just for my own business
I
itself.
love it. We hear that a lot from the community that they felt like they're less alone when they see someone who they really admire has been through the same problem. And makes you
Yeah.
feel like you're not a dumb. It's just like a hard job and you need, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, I think. And that's what I think common sense, all of you know how to handle those problems, but you feel alone in answering the problem. And in the moment of crisis, you're like, am I just bad at this job? Do I just suck? You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the great things of the community. They're like, no, you're doing this. This happened to me too.
My friend who's been in the game literally texted me the other day. She said, sometimes I just want to quit. Do you ever have that feeling? And then I had her tell me everything that's going on. I was like, okay, no, this is what we're going to do. Step back a little bit, and this is how we're going to address it. So,
I love that about you. Since I've met you, I think that you have such an incredible positive attitude and so needed in the industry, especially now, because I do think that there are designers facing some real financial burdens. Like the market is a little bit on a downturn, and some of the designers privately have been messaging me about financial decisions that they're making that are really tough. And it's really important in times that are a struggle too, to have tons of people. And one of the things that you hashtagged a while ago was a hashtag we did years ago, which was designers supporting designers. And I was like, oh, I really should use that hashtag again because it's such a great mantra for me because I told you earlier, it's such a passion project for me to bring the community together and make them feel like they're not alone and make them feel like they are connected to each other. And I do believe there's a bigger benefit to designers supporting designers than just the boots on the ground stuff like that we talked about, which is those great conversations where you have a question and somebody's like, I get them all the time, obviously, because we
Yeah.
have a interior design community, we get them every day, sometimes 30, 40 a day. And I try my best in stories to get everybody's questions answered. Sometimes I have to put them together, but they're for them to get those answers. Immediately I get the DMs of, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for posting my question. I this saved my butt. I know what to do now. I feel so much better. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And I love to hear that, and I love to see the friendships that kind of spring up from it too. There'll be designers will start to follow each other and then they will be at High Point together. My favorite thing in the world is when you guys get together and then you'll shoot me a text and we're like, where to go? Because you met through interior design. I'm like, I just love it. It makes my day every single time because like we're seeing real friendships happen, real connections happen.
Yes, I have my friendship born IEC friend.
Good.
And well,
Yeah.
stories.
I love it. I love it. And I remember getting a photo from two designers that literally visited the area that the other designer was and went to the beach together. And I was like, that is so cute. That is so cute. Cause that's real though. You guys are not just becoming acquaintances online. You're becoming real friends. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially if like as I'm following the Instagram questions that you receive and just seeing who is responsive and the advice that they're saying. Oh, I remember this person. Oh, you banged something up that's really smart.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yes, I love that. I love that. But I do think that's a bigger topic too. I have had the privilege of working behind the scenes with manufacturers and being a consultant with lots of different manufacturers about what interior designers need, how to address that market, giving them advice on how to navigate with working with designers or attracting designers. What are those keystone ideals for the brand to have if they're going to attract interior designers? And I hear it over and over again that for when you see all the people who comment on the Instagram too, or in the Facebook group,
Mhm.
that's only a portion of the people that are reading it. It's
Yeah.
like an iceberg, right? So there's a lot
Yes.
more reading it that aren't going to contribute, but they read it every single day.
Yeah.
And that includes brands. So I've had reps, I've had CEOs, I've had VPs, I've had marketing people tell me that they have changed policies within their company because they didn't understand they didn't understand interior designers' jobs
Mhm. Mhm.
as intensely as this is giving them like the fly on the wall window. I've
Yeah.
even had clients reach out to me and
Yeah.
say, reading your Instagram has taught me to be a better client for interior designers. I didn't know that this is how they feel about some of this, or this is how stressed out they are. Like they're just not, we're empathetic people, but we're not, you're not wearing someone else's shoes entirely. So
Totally.
sometimes you can't get it until you see, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize they felt that way. And, and I think that's really a positive thing, but I think it could be bigger. And one of the objectives I have right now is I'm building a database for the community. So I'm going to start, so I know where everyone is.
Mhm.
And knowing you're in New York, I could say, okay, this brand is doing a really cool like education or has a party or has an event or they have released something that they just want only the New York designers to see at this point.
Mhm.
And I can start to give information to the community that is a lot more targeted. I can say, here, you guys, you're going to want to know about this. You're going to want to know about this, depending on how I categorize the designers. And ultimately, we have a registered nonprofit now. So we have a board of interior design board, and we're setting it up so that if I step down someday or they want someone else to run it or whatever, it
Hmm.
belongs to the designers because I spent 12 years building it, but all of the juice, all the good shit from it is really it's the
Yeah.
designers. It's all of you. So I want it to belong to all of you. The power of it, of those numbers, the ability to affect change, the whole thing. So
Yeah.
the idea of like designers supporting designers when you did that hashtag, I'm like, it's such a big idea because it goes beyond like sharing resources. Hey, this is where to buy, you know, that lamp, or this is, oh, I know who makes that, or here's a good receiver. It's bigger than it's also, there are designers who do licensing deal with brands. And I know brands are always a little iffy about it because especially if that designer doesn't have a huge audience to begin with. Maybe they're an amazing designer, but they've
Yeah.
spent so much time being an amazing designer that they don't have huge social media numbers. So they're like, do designers support other designers licensing deals? And truthfully, the answer is I would say some do and some don't, because
Hmm.
there is a lot of that feeling of competition in design. And there is a lot of missed opportunity, feeling of missed opportunity. And I think that, you know, sometimes leads people down the path of, I didn't get that deal. So why should I go out of my way to buy that lighting fixture or whatever it is that's been
Yeah.
licensed? And what I would say back, and then to be fair, there are designers who are like, oh, I absolutely do every time. Yeah, because I was talking to Austin Handler actually at the last trade show because he had a whole lighting line from Rochambeau, Mabley Handler, and it's beautiful. It was stunning. And we were talking about licensing and that opportunity. And Austin said, I just view it as a shortcut. Like they get us, they get what our market is looking for. And so if it's a design or licensed product, I know it's going to be what I'm trying to, it's almost like a shortcut to getting something I really would want for my client because they get those design clients. So but I think it's bigger than that even. I think it's if we want to see more licensing deals from brands, if we want more money spent on designers, then we need to support designers every time. Every time there's a designer book, every time there's a designer product. Now, that doesn't mean you can fit it into every product, obviously, but we should be seeking them out,
Yep.
categorizing them, and knowing where they are. Like who has licensing deals right now? Do we have
Mhm.
a list of every interior designer licensed product?
Very good question.
Is there
Very
that
good
yet?
question.
I would
Yep.
love to put that together and say, here are the products that are all licensed products, like interior designers license these products. If you can fit these into your projects, because if you do, there will be more of those. And I just love that attitude that you have about it. You have that like designers should support other designers. And I know I've taken that a totally different direction than you probably meant.
There's different levels to this, and
Yeah.
if I'm starting back at the foundation and kind of recognizing why I feel this way is because when I started in the industry 16 years ago, I did not go to school for this. I had to learn and go figure things out on my own. There wasn't the business coaching programs that are available right now. And what I quickly learned is that the design world is not as open to people who didn't go to school, who do not have a formal education at that time. But the shift has changed. So being a learn as you go interior designer, but also having the business acumen and background that I have with my advertising and marketing background and just working for the corporate company in that world, I remember what it's like for someone that you admire that is ahead of you, taking the time to answer your questions, to help lift you up, support you. And because someone was nice to me back in the days, whether it's my personality or not, I know that I always want to do the same for someone below me, or someone in my peer, because we're all learning and growing together in that sense. Yeah, I'm a firm believer of supporting designers at any level, whether they're top tier or just starting out, because it should be a community that we build and lift each other up, because that's how we're gonna progress and grow as a team.
Right. And the feeling of competition is, you know, I understand there's a local market that you feel like, but if you really do the math on how many clients are out there, there's enough for everybody. There's really enough for everybody. There's enough of the 1%, there's enough of the 2% out there
Yes.
so that every interior designer in the country could have a full load of projects. It's about getting the tools to the designers to make them better salespeople, to make them
Hmm.
better
Hmm.
negotiators, to make them
Hmm.
more educated about what their pricing structure should look like so that they are not leaving money on the table, how they can do the financial planning so that they are also protecting themselves by having insurance and having a 401k because I know a lot of designers don't. And all of those things are really, and we think of it as, I think of it as a vulnerable population too, because most of the designers, we had all the analytics on our market, and there's interior design community is made up of 80% women, 20% men. Most of those are gay men. And that means we're all a vulnerable population, and we need to care about that kind of thing. We need to be educated as much as possible about that so that we do band together and we have negotiated better discounts on healthcare, negotiated some sort of program that will help a designer if there's some sort of illness. I've seen it all at this point. I've seen designers who were self-employed and didn't have short-term disability or long-term disability. And so when they became ill, there we were doing GoFundMe's for them. And I'd like to just see more protections that help us educate the community so that we are really banded together, not just obviously in the sense you're talking about, which is like sharing information. And believe me,
Yeah.
you know how much it means to a new designer to be accepted, to have someone that has 16 years experience tell them like, okay, this is how you really needed to set up your business. This is what I'm charging. This is where you really should be looking. This is how I'm attracting my clients. To get these nuggets of information. First of all, it's incredibly generous of all of you.
Yeah.
Incredibly generous of all of you to take the time to do that. And I don't take that lightly, but I do think it can go further. I think that we could really be there for one another in it. We're such an interesting industry. You know what I mean? We are creative, hardworking, empathetic, caring people. Every design, if I am at a party it's even out of the industry, I'll figure out who the designer is quick if there's a designer in that room. So, like, I'll just gravitate right to them. Like, I'll figure it out. There's just something about interior designers, and they're just such passionate people. So, out of the box thinkers. There's a lot that goes along, but there's also that people pleaser that
Yeah.
need to be liked, that all of that stuff is in there too. And I know, like, the memes that we do, the funny memes,
Yeah.
when they hit a nerve, it's because I know this is gonna be one that you're thinking about. And because I know what you guys feel. I've studied it for the
Yeah.
last 12 years. So
Yeah.
how we can address the bigger issues is something I'm really passionate about. And I want to do more to help support designers supporting each other in a better way so that we can really use this power of numbers
Yeah.
to for our advantage. Like, what it's hard to negotiate with a brand by yourself. Like, I had a designer that reached out to me last week with an issue with a table, and she talked to her rep. The client wants her to rebuy the table because it's got damage after a year. And they're like, it's not water damage. It just started basically chipping. And
Yeah.
they want the designer to pay for it. And so they had reached out to the brand, they'd reached out to a rep, they'd reached out to someone at corporate. So she was like, what do I do about this? She was asking me the question from asking
Yeah.
but instead of asking the community, I wrote to the brand. I'm like, who's the brand? Like, and then I wrote to the brand and they're handling it. They're fixing the
Yeah.
problem because they didn't know. There's a level of like, how much has she purchased? And there's a level of service she's going to get because of how much
Yeah.
she's purchased. But then there's
Yeah.
another level of service she's going to get because she's a part of the interior design community.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's power in numbers. There's power in numbers. And that's what I want to educate designers about, that there's so much power and that can go further than they even think. Like they can, if they're rallying around every interior, you guys specify more than the average everyday person. So
Mhm.
if you rallied around every single interior design licensing deal or every interior design book
Yeah.
and every interior design opportunity at brands and really brands going after interior designers this year and they're spending a lot of money on interior designers, we know about it and you start supporting that brand, guess what? Next year is on the budget too.
Yeah.
And same thing with, oh, next year they're going to do more licensing deals. And next year they're going to have more books for interior published by interior designers because we're all supporting one another.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to take these numbers and make it work for us, make it work for the industry so that we can really bring it to the next level of banding together. So I love it. I love that you're that supportive and I love that you get that.
You're in a very unique position, particularly because you didn't start off as an interior designer. You were able to create a community behind the scenes, and then with that knowledge and power, bridge the gap between designers and brands and potential partnerships.
Yeah.
So what you're able to do is kind of limitless, but it also takes the strength and the camaraderie of the community that you built this for.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you really think about it, it helps everybody. So if you it helps the brands too. If they are not, they're hearing that kind of information and it helps them address that design industry. So like from a brand perspective, say you had a problem with a sofa, like the fabric wasn't put on correctly or whatever and maybe it was your first order. So they don't have a lot of like loyalty or past relationship with you. How they handle that account, I can understand. They would be like, hey, this person hasn't done a lot of business. We'll do what we can, but we can't eat the cost of that, like that completely. Learning about what interior, and especially for people who are self-educated too, because even I will say, no, I'm going to say anybody, because I will tell you, Niall, who's my normal co-host, he wasn't able to make it today. He will tell you if he had to do all over again, he would go back to school for design for just like a 2-year program, and he would do business and get his master's in business because a lot of things they don't teach you. They don't teach you which, in school, they're not teaching you all the brands that have license. A lot of people end up out of design school not knowing they don't even know High Point exists. Right?
I swear to God, I was just listening to a podcast on this exact subject about how when a student goes to interior design class, they're not taught all the business knowledge that's necessary for them to actually be own interior design business
No.
and all the behind the scenes, like you said.
Like you can learn about how to process an order and you can learn about fabrics and you can learn about pattern play and you can learn about light and you can learn about neuroaesthetics or whatever topic, but those are continued education things like learning about marketing, learning about how to set up your accounting software. Those are just like, those are things that I think a lot of designers, whether you have a 4-year degree, a master's, you still struggle with that. I think that we're in this together and there's always going to be learning. It's one of those industries, you're never going to know everything.
Absolutely. You're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's
It's
constantly
never going to
evolving.
happen. It's all evolving. What's in this year is out next year. There's always something new. So that's in some ways very exciting, but it's a lot to learn. And I think that's where the overwhelm happens. But I will tell you, it's the feedback I hear from the manufacturing side is awesome. They learn how to be. I've had reps even tell me I've learned to be a better rep from interior design community. because I didn't know that those problems were going on. So sometimes they can't deal with the problem without knowing what the issues are. Sometimes it's hard to know how you might come to them and say, hey, this was an issue, but they're looking at it from the big company perspective. And was it your mistake? Was it the client's? Really, was water put on that a year later? It's hard
Yeah.
to heal, you know what I mean? Those kinds of things. And some of it is, how can the designer be equipped to say no?
Yeah.
How can the brand give good education too, so that the designer can negotiate with their client better and put their foot down? Because you've seen everything, I'm sure.
There's a lot of times that I cannot say no in the early days.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's that level of confidence, imposter syndrome, and just wanting to please the clients.
And but you can get it, but sometimes they need to be told no. Sometimes they need to no is fine to say. Boundaries are good. And they make for better working relationships too. If you're able, the communication that you get better at over time, I'm sure you feel the same way,
Yes.
makes it so you have better relationships with your clients because you are setting those boundaries up early and you're sticking
Mhm.
to them. These are the profit buckets of how my business runs and how I make my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're doing, you know?
I remember hearing this and it always stuck in my mind. And it's one of those things that no is a powerful sentence.
It is. It is.
No, that word no is a sentence. And
It is. And the other thing that is very powerful is silence. So
yeah,
you can say no, and then you can say nothing and let that sit in the air, and it can get awkward, but that is a power move too. The silence, sometimes not saying anything, is a response as well.
so
Yeah, yeah. And I just would love to see that kind of energy really explode in the community and go further so that we are in a position to really bolster the industry, because I do believe, like, the projections that are coming down the road from the experts, luxury furniture is supposed to be growing by about almost 50%, 150% in the next 10 years. So it's going to grow to $40 billion industry in luxury, just luxury furniture.
yeah,
So designers are positioned perfectly to make sure that rise in furniture costs go to them.
yes,
Those sales go to them.
yeah,
So how are we educating designers so that they can attract those sales versus not just the design clients, but also the sales that come from their audiences that they've built on social media, as tastemakers, as leaders in how people see design, and then also how they can manage getting ideal clients, selling people, the average everyday person, about not the average everyday person, but person who can afford luxury interior design, why they should pick a designer. There are a lot of the 1% who never hire an interior designer. Why is that? Why, and how can we think about that from a community standpoint? And how can we welcome those people into the industry so that they value design, that they recognize what it can do for their home and for their life? Because I really believe it's a big topic. That's a big topic of, like, how are we going to address that? And a lot of it is working together on some of these bigger global problems that the community like the industry has, and solving them together, solving those problems together and educating the group about, this is how we should do this. This is how we go after this.
I'm really curious on, so we have interior design community and that's established and wonderful. And that outreach is amazing. And for me, so this is also something new for me to learn and experience. Have you thought about how do we get the newer generation involved in that community? Because if we want to make this bigger and grow and start them out at a younger age, know that we're there for them. What does that look like? Have you thought about that?
I think part of that is mentorship. So
Mhm.
we have, you know, been in the early stages of building out a mentorship program. I think part of that is school education, like
Yes.
even high school education. I have students who reach out to me often, and I will put a group of them together and I'll do a Zoom just like I'm doing with you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I will give them advice on what they need to be looking at with the school and how they need to be setting up to give themselves success in finding a job once they are out of school. Because,
Yeah.
just the education is only the first step. Like, are they starting an Instagram or a social media account while they're in school when they have mood boards they're putting together and they're learning things? So and they're drawing and they're doing CAD. They'll have things to talk about that will be
Yeah.
showcasing their skills so that they can have a job. And then they
Yeah.
can use that account later down the road, changing it, editing it,
Of
if they
course.
start a business, because it'll be an established account that they're building. They're built from
Yeah.
the day they decide I want to be an interior designer, they put that hat on. They should be connecting. If I were a design student or had an interest as a high school student in
Yeah.
design, I think the first thing I would do is think about where I want to be. I would think about, okay, I want to start an Instagram that is like, I'm going to probably go to school in New York and I'm going to establish a business there at some point, but I need to learn from people. I need to work for people. So we've been done polls on what would you like as a designer for a design student or a design intern or a new designer to know. Why would you hire them? What skills do they need that are going to make them marketable to you? And
Yeah.
very often designers will answer back CAD skills,
No.
social media skills, because they don't want to do the social media part, and procurement. So
Okay.
dealing with the vendors. So those are the
Okay.
three things. If you are great at those three things, you got your CAD skills down, because let's face it, you're a designer. You're not hiring someone to do the parts of the job that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You're trying to offshoot some of the stuff you don't want to do.
Good
So,
agree.
you hire someone with these skills and they'll still learn an incredible amount about vendors and how to order and how to do that process correctly. And that's another thing I think that we should have is standard SOPs for interior designers.
Yes.
So that designers have a guide on here's how to place an order with Curry Company properly. Here's how to do this. Here's how to do that. And there are visual tools out there. There's a tool called Scribe that you can go through the process. And there are Google Drive plugins too, where you can go through the process of how you do. If you were sitting at your computer right now and you were going
Yeah.
to order something from one of your brands, you can
Yeah.
turn this on. You can do everything you're doing, order it how you want to order it. And then that will make an SOP for you with screenshots of this is how it's done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can do that for
Okay.
all of those tasks that you need to do in your office. This is how we do the accounting functions. This is
Yeah.
how we order. This is how we, deal with client communication. And you have standard operating procedures for all of those and make it visual because we're all, designers are visual learners, of course.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So
Yep.
that process is easier because that's another issue too, is you're not learning in design school or not out of design school how to manage people. Like that's a hard job. Like not everybody's cut out to be a manager. It's really not an easy thing to do. And so I know designers who grew their businesses 12 people and then they realized very quickly, like this sucks. Like I don't want
Too much.
I had way more fun when it was just me. So there's things like that I think that are coming together and giving students tools. Like I had a student one time say, I have a friend that works at Pottery Barn. Do you think I should get a job at Pottery Barn to learn how to be a designer? And I was like, if I were you, I think it would be much more learning and it's not as glamorous as maybe working at Pottery Barn as a
Yeah.
first job, but go work doing kitchen design at Home Depot or Lowe's. If that's the kind of level job you're looking for, find something that's going to give you translatable design skills,
Yeah.
like actual design skills, because people coming in and picking out a sofa or picking out a lighting fixture, it's going to help you, but you might not have that hands-on design
Yeah.
that is happening that you're going to have that would be a translatable skill. And that's part of that is also understanding the country as a map and where, because we have designers that are in small
All over.
town in Missouri, you know what I mean? And the way that they would approach their business is going to be very different than the way you would approach your business. Understanding the market, understanding the different level of designer and thinking about the big things and how that
Yeah.
can affect designers and how it will, if we have some crowdsourced tools, that it benefits us all in the long run. And part of that, even the questions that we do are the Instagram stuff. If you were a design student, that would be such a window into the career.
I
And maybe you might even decide it's not for you too.
yeah. I put my little cousin onto her Instagram. I said, just read a lot of these questions. You'll see a lot of how people do things and how they don't do things. This is the learning go-to tool. Yeah.
And these are the business questions that come up every
Yeah.
day. And sometimes
Exactly.
it's good to scare people away too, because it's not an easy job. It's not an easy, like people think of it as, you can imagine
Glamorous.
like that 17-year-old, right? Like that, it's like, oh, I could shop and I can buy cool stuff. And I love like painting my room and changing around my room. And they think
Exactly.
that is, and it's
Yeah.
not that.
I was like, do you know how to handle a $20,000 mistake?
that.
How do you get your clients
Without
without
crapping yourself. You know? Maybe a little crapping yourself. Yeah. Yeah. That's the scary stuff. And then the insurance side of it too. I was actually talking about that with,
Yes, educate me, please.
yeah, on the insurance side too.
Yeah.
Because you know how this past year we've had a lot of a few manufacturers gone out of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's rough. But from the designer perspective, there were orders that were already paid for that never got
Mhm.
shipped, obviously. And we were talking about that with a few brands, and they were like, this could be handled in an insurance fashion too. There could be a rider on your business policy to cover this. But a lot of the insurance companies
Oh,
don't understand our business in that
yeah.
way. Like having Wendy Estella, the attorney, she's
Yeah.
on our board.
It's amazing.
Isn't she
Yes. I
great?
love
Oh,
love Wendy.
Wendy's fantastic. She'll be at High Point too, by the way, and she's going to be
Oh,
on board panels.
amazing. I will
Yeah.
be there.
Yes. So she's fantastic. And she gives such great advice to the designers from a business perspective and how they set up those. Setting up your contract is like the cornerstone of how you communicate with your client from the very beginning. So she's fantastic at some of her clauses have been really interesting, like things I hadn't thought of before.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And
Okay.
protections like that,
Yeah.
that having that in there, that's a good protection for a designer. But to bring it further to, okay, these are great things. How do we implement that from insurance perspective too? So designers are protected. Designers are given maybe even their health insurances, and are having or long-term disability is included in it, or short-term disability, or things that will protect a designer long-term, and how we educate the market about the things that they need to have those protections, because you're only making money for your business if you're really adding all of the things that you need to have for yourself. If you aren't putting away on your 401k, if you aren't able to pay for your health insurance, if you aren't able to have short-term disability, if you aren't able to insure your business properly, then you're not, those are added costs you have to factor into how your business can run. So these are things that you can be explaining to your client too. Hey, I have to cover all of these things to stay in business.
Mhm.
Now, that's why my price is X. It's not just, and that's why I make money on furniture too.
Yeah.
Because the design fee is this, the procurement fee is this, the product management fee is this. These are the services you get. This is why it takes time. This is how much time I can budget for that. You can budget for this within your budget, but this is how I make money. So you're not getting the pushback for why I saw that chair cheaper online. You knew about that chair because of me.
Yeah.
I paid to go to High Point and sit on it. And I have a relationship with that brand. And in order for my business to make money, I have to make money on those chairs. I have to make money when I sell those chairs, or I can't afford my insurance and I can't afford my 401k because I'm self-employed. And this is how I make my money. And sometimes just putting it out there and explaining that,
Yeah.
it shuts it down immediately.
Yeah.
Because are they going to go, you know what? You really shouldn't have a 401k. I want to save $50 on that chair. You know what I mean? Because we're people. We're dealing with people here. You wouldn't know about that, the chair. I did the research to find that's the right chair for you and your project. So I should be making money. Now that you've seen the picture of it, of course you can find it cheaper. There are people that did not do all of those things for you, that are just putting it up online. That's why you hired a designer who knows which pieces to pick.
Exactly.
You know, which ones are garbage and which ones are amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think that sometimes designers are afraid to push back
Yeah.
at that. They'll get these conversations and they'll just say, okay, buy it online. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Especially you're not in a position to tell that person that they can buy it online unless you have all the things that I just said for your business. Do you have your 401k? Do you have your insurance? Do you have your business insurance? If you do not, then you are not in a position to say you can send that sale away. You need those sales. Those are part of how you make money. And then you figure it out. This is what I need to make. And this is how much I need to charge based on that. And this is how much my gross profit margin is. And you should be doing an analysis of your profits at the end of a project to make sure you did make money, looking at everything and including the things we give away. Because that's the other thing I am harping on interior designers, because I know designers who give away things because they're just like, I love it.
I really wanted it in here.
Yes, I love it. I want it in here so bad. The picture's going to look so great. No. Yeah, no. And would a tile guy or plumber be like, you know what? I really like this plumbing configuration. You're not paying for it, but it has to be in here because it's the right way to do it. No, they're not going to pay for it. They're going to be like, this is the way it needs to be done. Pay me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think designers often get pushed around. And how do we empower them to be firm, especially because there's such a power imbalance between a luxury client and an interior design small business. There's that whole thing too. I just think about it all the time. Like
of course you do.
Problems and I need to solve them. I don't know how.
Of course. Yeah.
That's the greatest thing about the community of designers is that even like ideas I don't have. These are just things that observations about the community of design and things that bother me about designers and how they, not about designers, but about the design industry and how we can solve these problems. But I think that I'm not the only one probably thinking about this. I think there are a lot of people out there having these conversations in small rooms, and we need, how can we pull that information, those ideas together?
Yeah.
So we solve that.
That's the number one question.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the number one question. And as I'm hearing you explain some of the issues that other designers are experiencing, and also, so like you just said something, I was like, oh, I was in that position a while ago. But what it comes down to is, I didn't have the education. I didn't have the education or thought process to be able to articulate it in that manner that you did. I was like, oh, I could have done it that way. And now that after you said it about the whole procurement situation, I was like, oh, that's actually a really good angle. So a lot of it has to do with exposure to other designers, exposure to opportunities of learning, education. So
and that never ends too, and keep not going, because even things we learn, we forget over time. How much do we learn? And we're like, ooh, we all need a refresher course on basic like sales 101. This is how to run through a sale. This is how to overcome an objection, things that are just old school tactics of communication
Yeah.
that work, that are
Yeah.
effective.
Work. Yeah.
How to open that conversation, what that script needs to look like. Also to prepare your staff if you do get staff, because you want that feeling of like your brand to be the same if they're dealing with you or dealing with someone else in your company. And not to mention, you want to make sure that your standard operating procedures set you up for success. So because your staff can make mistakes too that are costly and can take away
Absolutely.
from the revenue of the project. So all of that needs to be figured out. What is our ROI? What is our actual profit versus revenue? And part of that is the mistakes,
Yeah.
figuring that out and how you can factor that into your pricing. And that has to be factored into your pricing. You can't be slim with it where like you're trying to be lean and go for the bargain because you want to be competitive, but you also want a healthy business.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another topic is like we really need to work on having some exposure to pricing, like how other designers are pricing
Yeah.
and asking. We've thought about doing a state of the interior design business survey where we're asking like real questions, like how
Yeah.
much did you make last year? How many employees do you have? Real intense questions about your business. It would take 5-10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
And then compiling that and giving back the data like here and make it regional too, so that in these areas, this is what people were charging. This is the models that worked. They are doing this versus this. 50% were doing flat fee, 25% were doing hourly, 25% were doing a combination of both. This much of their business is remote e-design kind of situation. This much of it is hands-on. This much is full service versus
Mhm.
just maybe selling product or
Yeah.
helping clients make buying decisions versus design really,
Yep.
and learning a little bit about those businesses so that we can educate the market on this is what's out there. Because if
The
that
bar.
designer who's go on the low end because they don't know and they aren't
Yeah.
factoring in all these other things that they need,
Yeah.
can raise their prices so that they're in alignment with everyone else. Because that's the other big, huge issue is that there are a lot of designers who are lowballing themselves, and
Yeah.
that fear of, like you said, it's the fear of the imposter syndrome. But it's harder to have the imposter syndrome if you look at the numbers, really.
Yeah.
And this is what I need to stay in business. I can't be a people pleaser and give this away because this is what I need to for my own self to stay in business, or I should be getting a job doing something else because, right? Like we all, because you would be doing something else, having protections, having insurance, having 401k, having.
Lessons I should have learned a long time ago.
Right?
All of this stuff. It took me a while to get on that page. I was like,
Sure.
well, I'm doing something wrong. And I didn't.
And I think but that's part of it is that the wonderful thing about community is, and the wonderful thing about really being there for each other, not just saying designers supporting designers, but actually
Yes.
designers supporting
Yes.
designers. That's,
Absolutely.
and there's so many beautiful things that can come from it. There's so many
Absolutely.
wonderful things about that education, these big ideas being solved by the community of people. Because, like I said, I don't know all the answers either, but there's somebody in this group that does. Do you know what I mean? There's somebody in the group that's, hey, this would work. Or how about this? Or how about we think of this? Think of the people. There's 105,000 people who follow interior design community, right? You're telling me 105,000 people couldn't come up with answer on how to handle this? We could solve some of these problems if we were thinking about getting out of just how our business is going today and thinking
Yeah.
about how we solve some of these problems for us all, so that they have that education. So they have these shortcuts to how to have a happy, successful, thriving, financially secure business. And then you're feeling happier and more secure in your own self because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. it's such a kumbaya thing. Like,
So,
oh,
someone needs to steer the ship. Someone
I
needs to
know.
steer the ship. Kumbaya. Kumbaya. It's
But
important.
I love that you think that way too, because I'm like, once you said that, I was like, I just love that because it's like, it's a bigger topic for me. It's so important. I just see so many good things could come from it. And I see the younger people coming in, like you said, 16 years ago, you didn't know any of
I
that.
wish.
You
I
wish.
wish. I
Imagine if you
wish.
had that book right now that had these are the things you need to think about. And these are the things, how much more successful would your business be today if you had all of that? It's a coulda, woulda, shoulda thing. The more we come together and empower one another and really work together, the better we all are. And to let go of that feeling of competition and realize that we really have a lot of power to change how this industry moves forward by working together.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
I love you so much. I think
I
you're amazing. Thank you so
Um,
much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think that idea is such a big one. I thank you for reminding me about it because honestly, we used to post that hashtag a long time ago and I like anything else, things drop off.
yeah, yeah,
No,
absolutely.
but it's made me start thinking about it again and made me start thinking like, how can I implement it as an actual more than a hashtag, it's an actual mantra and it's something like an actual plan that can help the industry. And we're going to need people like you that are willing to share and willing to dig in and help other people to come up with this from not
Yep.
knowing
I'm
and be
in.
better prepared. Yeah.
A new generation. Bringing them
Frontier
all up.
designers. We love it. We love it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and come back for more of To the Trade.
Awesome.